Hi there, I'm Amy and I'm the designer behind Amy Nicole Patterns. I started sewing about a little over 10 years ago. I just started with basic stuff. I made a purse out of a skirt, and then I put my first sewing machine on layaway at Walmart after I realized that I was pretty much hooked. The first time I ever sewed with commercial patterns, it did not go well. I found the instructions to be confusing and really meant for people that really had a lot of experience and knew what they were doing. I had to stitch and unstitch so many times. It was a very frustrating experience for me. And at that point, I kind of gave up on patterns and was just like, who needs patterns? I'll just flub things myself. And then a couple years after that, I discovered the world of sewing blogs and indie sewing patterns, and I immediately knew that I had found my people. I started a blog, a sewing blog in 2009, and I just kept seeing all these indie sewing patterns pop up, these new companies, and I loved sewing with indie patterns because I felt like they were really catered towards the maker. No matter what skill level you're at, they really make everything clear and easy to follow, and they really want you to succeed and make a successful garment. In 2010, I started my first year at FIT, and I absolutely loved it. I learned so much there, from design to color theory to fabric studies to pattern making, and it didn't take me very long to realize that I actually enjoyed making the patterns and actually making the garments more than designing fashion. And that was what really pushed me and encouraged me to follow my dream to become a pattern maker. I did an apprenticeship with a pattern maker in the garment district, and it was an unbelievable experience. I learned so much. At that point, the indie sewing community was really growing, and I started to gain a lot more followers on my blog, and I just realized that this is really where I want to be, in this community, serving this community, and creating my own designs. And making patterns for other sewists helps me to be able to create patterns and garments that I love, and also inspire and encourage this community that I'm so fond of and grateful for. Amy Nicole Patterns are for women who like playful, fun clothing. You're not really gonna find your basic t-shirt and pants kind of patterns around here. I like to experiment with my clothing, whether that's a simple shape in bright colors or a unique silhouette. I really like to play with shape and volume and have fun with my designs and my wardrobe, and I hope to bring that aesthetic to Amy Nicole Patterns as well. All my patterns are drafted for Petites. When I was doing market research for this company, I learned a lot. And one of the big things I found was that so many people were constantly having to hem. I found that there weren't a lot of pattern companies really serving the petite market. So as a petite person myself, I decided that this is where I wanted to go with my pattern company. Although all of my patterns will be easily adjustable for ladies of a taller stature, my patterns come in sizes 0 through 20, and the skill levels range from absolute beginner to advanced sewist. I have 5 skill levels, 1 being absolute beginner, 3 being intermediate, and 5 being advanced sewist, and then 2 and 4 kind of fall in between those two. If you're an adventurous beginner, say, or you're a little more than intermediate, but you're not quite sure you're an expert, usually that means you're an expert, you're just afraid to call yourself one. Well, I really try to make it clear on each pattern what level it's drafted for, so you know what you're getting into. Whenever I decided I was going to start a pattern company, I knew that I wanted to do something different with the instructions. Personally, when I sew from patterns, I usually scrap the instructions because I kind of sew in a different format altogether. I like to eliminate my time back and forth from the machine to the iron as much as possible and be as efficient as possible with sewing my garments, and that is how I decided to write my instructions. I call it assembly line sewing, even though it's not technically assembly line because that would mean you're sewing multiples of each thing. Instead of, say, now we're going to sew the bodice and complete the bodice, and then we're going to sew the skirt, and then we're going to put them together, I like to sit at my machine and sew as many seams as I can before one of those seams needs to be finished in order to go on to the next step. It's kind of hard to explain, but you'll see when you get to my instruction booklet. Another unique thing about my patterns is that each pattern includes a printout sheet to cover your pattern envelope with, or however you like to store your patterns. Each sheet includes a place to write what size you cut, how much fabric you need, the notions required, the seam allowance. It's one of my pet peeves when it's so hard to find the seam allowance. It's every pattern piece that is included, so you can have your pattern inventory. And then a place for adjustments made and notes to be made. I think that this is going to be super helpful in helping you stay organized with your patterns. I can't wait to show you guys everything I have in store for Amy Nicole Patterns. I have so many ideas. I can't wait to move forward and learn and grow with this company. And I can't wait to see you guys making up my patterns and sewing with them. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey. Happy sewing!